Hello and welcome to Carveco Maker. My name is Leighton and I'm going to be creating my first project today using Maker. Now, I haven't prepared this. I know what I want to make, but bear in mind this is not prepared. I want to show you what happens if I make any mistakes and how I can get around them. So I'm going to be creating this completely from scratch. I've not prepared this. Okay, so what I want to create is just a basic plaque with my name on it. And I also want to create some fixing holes. To create a new model, to start, if you select New Model, and then this opens up the New Model dialog box. Here you can specify the dimensions. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be the size of the part that you are cutting out. It doesn't even need to be the size of the material that you're using. You could set it whatever you like. It's all dependent upon what the material is that you actually put on the machine and where it can actually go to. So for this example, I'll just show you if I update that, the white area on the right hand side updates in real time. This is basically showing me how big the model is going to be. So I'm going to change that to 14 inches by 8 inches. In this model, I'm probably going to do it 12 inches by 6 inches. The resolution, I wouldn't really worry about that, especially for this example. I'm not really too fussed about it. It basically refers to 3D models within Carveco Maker. Now, if you're not doing any 3D work, I just wouldn't worry about it. Okay? It's basically how crisp the models are. Now, if you have quite a decent computer, there's no reason why you can't just crank that up all the way to the right and just never worry about it again. The only thing that it will affect if you are creating just simple 2D cutouts is when you come to the simulation, this simulation is all determined by the resolution because it's basically a 3D model, the simulation is. So if you have this set really low, you're going to have quite a jagged simulation. Now, it's not going to machine like this, it's just basically a display. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Okay, so for this example, I'm just going to crank that all the way to the right hand side. You've got units down the bottom, either in metric or imperial, dependent on where you are in the world or however you'd like to design. You also have this white area that I mentioned. Now, this can also set the origin point or the 0, 0 position of your CNC within this model. So if I click any of the 4 corners, you can see that it basically changes my datum point. I can also click to be in the center. So this is entirely up to you, however your CNC machine is set up. So I'm going to put it down to the bottom left for this example. And I'm just going to select OK, and it will take me into Carveco Maker. Now, if you haven't watched the video talking about the interface, I would recommend watching that because I'll go into the whole layout of the interface in a lot more detail so you know where everything is located. For this example, I'm just going to use the 3D view. Now, don't be scared of using the 3D view. Just because it's called a 3D view doesn't mean that you can't draw 2D shapes in it. The only risk that you have is if you click on the middle mouse button and then rotate. Okay? And then obviously you're not going to be able to draw correctly from the top down. So to go back, what you need to select is that icon there, which is view top. And it basically gives you a bird's eye view. Okay. Now, if you're worried about that, or you just don't really want to draw in the 3D view, it's not a problem. Just switch to the 2D view here, and then you can draw everything in the 2D view. If you left and right mouse click together, you can pan this around, okay? And you can also zoom in by hovering the mouse somewhere and then just using the scrolly wheel on the mouse. You can also zoom back out if you want to, just pan that. Now the 3D view works exactly in the same way, so left and right click will pan. You can zoom in, but if you hold down the middle mouse button and then drag, it will rotate the view around. Now you may not think that you need this, but it is extremely useful when you want to take a look at toolpaths. So let's say, for instance, you want to take a look at a cut that's going in 2 passes, let's say. You can see this in the 3D view when you rotate around. In the 2D view, you can't see this. Okay, so I do find it quite useful. So let's go back to the top view, and I'm going to start designing. Okay, now before I go any further, when I talk about vectors, I'm basically talking about lines. So lines, rectangles, circles, or text. I would normally talk about those as vectors. Okay, so if you ever hear me talking about vectors, I'm just simply talking about lines or squares or circles. Okay, so let's draw a rectangle first of all. So if I come over here and left click, you'll see on the right hand side it opens up a different dialog box, and it's basically giving me all of the options for creating a rectangle. Now you can just type in sizes on the right hand side and then just click somewhere, but what I find really easy to do is to just literally select somewhere, left click, hold it down and then drag and let go, and it will create a rectangle. Okay, now it's nowhere near the right size, so what I'm going to do is enter some sizes in now. So width, let's say I want that to be 12 inches. Height, that's going to be 6 inches. Now you can also add corner radii to this. Now there are 2 ways to do it. One way is to grab that corner there, that red dot, and then bring it down. You can get more of an artistic sort of radius, so basically what looks good. Or you can enter an actual size in there. So let's say I want these to be 1/2 inch. Okay, and it automatically adds on 1/2 inch radii to the corners. You can also invert these, so if you wanted this to look more like a proper sign base, you can click there and it will invert them. I'll just put them back to normal rounded edges. Now the center point, you can choose where that center point is going to be. What I tend to do is to draw everything, put it in the middle of the model, and then at the end move it down for machining. Now this is entirely up to you, this is just my personal preference. If you wanted to move this, you can just select here. So if I select 0 and then select 0, it basically puts the middle of that on my datum point, my 0, 0. Okay, if I were to do it 7 by 4, it will put that in the center because it's half the size of my model. Now, if I didn't want this to be in the center, or let's say, for instance, I had a random size and it was too much effort to basically work out what the center was, let's say I put that there, And then you can also rotate this around if you wanted to. I'm not going to bother with this. And then once you've finished, select create. I'll show you an easier way to get this rectangle in the center. So if I click create, and then to come out of the rectangle creation tool, I can either select cancel, I can select escape on the keyboard, or just right click and it will come out of there. Right, now where this is located at the moment, if I were to try to machine this, it wouldn't machine correctly. It would basically come off the model. So this bit at the bottom here wouldn't be machined. So this needs to be within the model. Okay, so if I want to put this in the center of the model, what I need to do is to go to the vector drop down, and then under align, you got center in model. Now next to that, you can see that there's a shortcut. So the shortcut for that is F9. So if you press F9 on the keyboard when you select something, it will put it into the center of the model. So if I click center of model, it moves it into the center of the model. Now you can see that at the moment it is in this pink color. Now that means that it is selected. If I left click on the yellow area or even on the grey area, you can see that it deselects it and it becomes just a normal black colour. If I want to select it again, just left click on it and then it becomes selected. You'll also see that there is a green point down the bottom left. Now this just denotes where the start point is. So when you come to machine it, that's where it's going to start. In a later video, I'll show you how to change that if you wish. Right, so what I'm going to do now is create some text to fit inside this. So if I come over here and select create vector text, this opens up the text tool. Now I'm just going to put these back to the default values, and I'm going to put that to be points, and let's just make that say 100 points. Okay, and then just select here and I'm going to type my name. Okay, now if you wanted to change this, as you can see, this is maybe a little bit too big. If I were to change from points down to, let's say, inches, it doesn't change the size of it. So let's say I wanted it to be 1 inch. It doesn't actually change the size. What I need to do is select it. So if I hover over the right hand side, you can see my cursor changes to this sort of eye cursor. So if I left click, hold the mouse button down and then drag to the left, it becomes highlighted. And then if I change to inches, you can see it's absolutely huge at the moment because it's 1,000 inches. And then I change that to be, let's say, 2 inches, maybe 1 inch, maybe 1.5 inches. So you can just play around and get the right size. Okay, so maybe make it 1¼ inches. You can also change the spacing of that. So if I just zoom in whilst I'm doing this, and then just knock the spacing down, you can see that it groups it together a bit closer. Now you can do this however much you like, but you have to bear in mind that now you've got intersection points over the top here. So you'll definitely have problems when you come to machine this. Now, if you wanted to bring that back up, let's say I'll bring that to be 10 and -10, like so. And I'm going to change the actual font. So let's say I'll come down here. Here you can see all of the fonts that are installed in Maker. Now, if you want a different font, all that you need to do is install it on your machine. So you just double click the font and you'll have an option to install the font. So just install it. Next time that you restart Carveco Maker, it will show in the list. One word of warning about fonts is that they tend to be basically done by graphic designers who are not too fussed about intersections, for instance, in the font. So you may get problems with various intersections. When you come to machine, you're going to have a few problems. Now, a little tip, if you click on there and then click on it again and then press the down arrow key, you can actually basically go through all of the fonts and see which one you'd like to use. Now I'm going to go back up to that font that I had, which was the Bell one, because I'm pretty sure that I'm going to get a problem. I know that I'm probably going to get a problem on this O here. Okay, so let's select create. And I want to place this in the center also. So if I go to vector again, align, center in model. Now you'll see that this one is a purple color. Now purple colors mean that they are grouped together. So if I click on the L, notice how it selects the whole object. Okay, so pink is basically being selected. Purple means that they're grouped together. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is create some circles. So create a circle. Again, just like creating a rectangle, left click and drag out. Okay, now I'm not too fussed about the size there because what I'm going to do is enter a size here. So let's do a size of, let's say, 0.25, so half an inch diameter. Click create and then right click and it comes out of the tool. Now what I want to do for this is put this in the center and then move it to the left or to the right. So let's go down to the vector drop down menu, center in model, and then what I can do with this is move it to the left hand side. Now if you notice, the cursor normally is this white arrow. If I hover over the vector, see how it becomes this white arrow, which basically denotes that I can move the object. So if I click on the vector, hold the mouse button down, I can actually move this around. Okay, now at the moment, I can basically move it to anywhere that I'd like, but it's not going to be in the correct position. So what I can do is press Alt on the keyboard and this will give me a 90-degree angle snap. So if I press Alt down, you can see that it keeps it in line with the original position. So if I come out to there, and let's maybe bring it quite close to the edge because I'm going to show you how you can move it another way, and then just let go and it moves it to there. Now, as I said, it's quite close to the edge, so I want to bring this back in. So I want to move it to the right. So when you select an object, what you can also do is use the arrow keys on the keyboard to move it. So if I press the right arrow key, you can see that I can move this inwards. Okay, so that looks okay. Now with that still selected, I'm going to mirror that over onto the right hand side. So if I go to here, which is mirror objects, select that, and then I'm going to make sure that I've got copy the original object selected because I want to obviously create a copy. And I'm going to do this across the model. And it will create a copy over the model. And then I can close that. Okay, so the design part of this is almost complete. What I want to do is to move this down into the bottom left hand corner, just so I save most of my material, because basically this is going to be my 0, on my CNC, and it's not going to start cutting until it gets here. Okay, so if I had a big sheet and I had lots of these, I would want to move this down to the bottom left. So I'll show you how you can move it. So first of all, I'll show you about selecting things. So there are a couple of ways that you can select things. The first way is to select something and then press Shift on the keyboard, hold it down, and then select something else. Okay, and then you can slowly build up your selection. A really quick way to do this is to left click and drag a box to the right over everything, and it selects everything. Now, if I didn't select everything, if I didn't have everything within the box, so if I were to draw a box like this, let's say, this would only select whatever's inside the box. So it would only select the left hand circle and the text. Okay, so if you go from left to right, everything has to be inside the box. Now, if you go right to left, it's different. Okay, so you can basically select things really, really quickly by using this method. And once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to select things really, really quickly by doing this. If I wanted to select all of this quickly, I could just draw a box like that, and it would select everything. Okay, select a box like that, and that will select all of the inside parts. So it's quite useful if you want to select certain things that are inside something, for instance. So let's select all of these, and I'm going to move them down to the bottom left. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can do this. You can do it with the arrow keys and just move it down to wherever you like. You could do it by left clicking on there when you get the move icon and just move it down. But what I'm going to do is show you a different way, which is a lot more accurate. So to do this, use the transform tool. So if I select transform, which is here, and you can see that by default, that will be there. So basically the origin point is in the center. Now, if I move the origin point to be the bottom left, you can see that it changes there. So this is basically an anchor point. So let's say I want this to be 1/4 of an inch in from the edge of the material. And then select apply. And then it moves it so down the edge, I've just got 1/4 of an inch, and it's moved it all down to the bottom left. And then I can close that. Okay, so this is ready now for me to start machining. So in the next video, we'll take a look at machining this.